Hey, everybody. I've taken forever to get to Pisces in my simple astrology sign series, but I'm here and we're doing it. So let me first just say that one of the reasons why I've been so slow to get Pisces done is that my dad last year got really sick with a terminal, really rare neurodegenerative disease. And so I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth to be with him and my parents and my family. And that's continued to progress. And my dad is on hospice now, has been on hospice for a number of months. And as we continue getting closer to the end, it's like perfect time to talk about Pisces. So, but that's part of my delay. And also I feel like it's good timing because it's held me in that field closer than I guess most times in my life. Although my Jupiter in Pisces is pretty strong in my chart, but this is a whole new level. So let's I guess recap a little bit. The wheel, the 12 signs, start with cardinal, move to fixed, move to mutable, and then that triad repeats all the way around. When we reach the end, Pisces is the very end, the 12th sign of the zodiac. The final sign is a mutable sign. And mutable signs are about adapting and about learning and about transitioning from either one phase, one type of thing to another. Sometimes we talk about them in the sense of, for example, a cardinal sign initiates something. Then the following fixed sign finds value, meaning, and purpose in what was initiated and roots it and grows it and builds it. And by the time we move to the mutable sign, it's time to get relative perspective about what was I actually doing, what was that whole phase before about, and then also getting some flexibility to move to the next thing. So Pisces, being the closing sign of the whole zodiac, has everything to do with how new evolutionary cycles begin, because we know that endings and beginnings are part of each other, right? They're not separate. Now, Pisces also is a water sign, and water, of course, is about emotion and about feeling, and there's a natural psychic or intuitive sensitivity to the water energy. It's yin, right? It's yin, or what we sometimes call feminine energy. Again, nothing to do with female, just feminine or yin in the sense that it draws in, it is receptive, right? And when we think about with water in particular, that receptivity, it flows and moves around what's there. It's one way that I think about that energy. Also, the yin elements being earth and water, they draw down and in, right? There's a sense of gravity to them. Whereas with the yang or the masculine air and fire signs, there's a levity, right? They rise up. So you can almost kind of get that feel from someone who's really earthy or watery. There's more of a pulling down energy versus super airy, fiery people tend to be, how to move it up. And I don't mean that in any kind of better or worse way, just in kind of how nature moves way. So with Pisces, for me, some of the greatest gifts of Pisces certainly is vision, it's imagination. When we think of some of the most famous, and maybe we shouldn't even say famous, but the artists that are creating things that really touch our souls, that really elevate us to or move us into a different dimension, like that we're actually able to see into something that maybe we didn't even think was possible. That's very Piscean, because Pisces is so tapped in to divine inspiration. And whether you consider that to be God or nature or energy, whatever it is, the words don't matter. but it is definitely tapped into a greater source. And with Pisces, the traditional ruling planet is Jupiter, and the modern ruling planet is Neptune. And with both Neptune and Jupiter, there's a high level of idealism, right? And in particular with Neptune, almost a dreaminess. There's a sense of illusion. And with Pisces, oftentimes, we may joke that people with strong Pisces may be, may buy into false illusions. They may not see what's actually going on in front of their faces. And part of that is because they're almost tuned into a different frequency. I think about like in relationships where, maybe you ignore the fact that your partner is, I don't know, having just like terrible, maybe even abusive behavior on a daily basis, but you can just see to that deeper inner soul, right? You can just see to that potential. You can see that greater essence of what or who they are. And so sometimes we have a tendency to just buy into that and to ignore what's actually happening. And so that, it's just one of the ways that this can manifest. But I think what's always more important is to feel into why, or why is that happening? How is it happening? What does that come from? And to me, ultimately, Pisces is about interconnectivity. It is about seeing into the soul of things, right? It is seeing beyond the surface and feeling into a greater presence. And so you can see how that totally makes sense. It just isn't always practical for, I don't know, manifesting a happy, safe life right in the moment here on planet Earth. There can be a naive, childlike essence to Pisces because so connected to the magic, right? So connected to, I don't know, my stepdaughter sometimes says, "Oh, you mean the voices? I can hear them," right? And it's that kind of energy, which to me, there's so much potential there. Well, I should say it's not just spiritual things or artistic things. And actually, I haven't even really launched into the spiritual side of it. I mean, to me, when we talk about spiritual just means the part of ourselves that is beyond just our mundane, body, physical existence. So it doesn't have to be linked to a religion or anything at all. It's just something more than my physicality, right? And Pisces is about that connection. But Pisces, so all kinds of spiritual practice and spiritual energy and spiritual experiences and transcendental experiences, right? Things that just like, whoa, I totally lost track of space and time. Where was I, right? That's Pisces space. We call the sign spacey sometimes, but it's literally has a different relationship with space, meaning time and space don't really exist in that Pisces sort of frame. Now, that maybe sounds a little bit Neptunian, and it certainly is. And I say that because Pisces, of course, is still a sign about life on this planet, at least the way we're working with it. So it's certainly not completely broken with reality, but it's the most detached from what we would call our earthbound or experience. And in particular, the most disconnected or freed or even released from the ego, right? So when we think about Pisces, it is about experiencing that part of ourselves that is eternal, that part of ourselves that's part of everything else. So one of the reasons why Pisces is so intuitive, so psychically attuned to things, is because it has this, I don't know, natural merging with the field of energy. So it can pick up on things. So you can imagine, what a gift that is. But at the same time, you can feel the pain of everything and everyone, right? Or all the emotions of everything and everyone. And at that greatest expression of all life as we know it. And that can be heavy pressure. So, and you can think on a smaller scale, right? With Pisces being like this sponge that just soaks stuff up or picks things up or tunes into things, that even going to a party, right? Even just having conversation with someone can be emotionally and psychically exhausting. So Pisces in particular needs a lot of solitude, needs a lot of alone time, just time to like be in your own world. And part of that is, about clearing your energy field and just being able to, feel yourself a little bit and recover from some of what I would say of some of the harsh sort of realities that we deal with in our experience here. But it's also about well, ideally in a healthy way, escaping into your own magical mental emotional space, right? So Pisces certainly is a sign that's associated with addiction and escapism, but part of that is because there's such a need to insulate oneself, from either the things that are difficult to feel or difficult to feel, but at the same time too, kind of just wanting to be somewhere else, right? There is this sort of like wanting to be just transported to a different place. And so you can see how video games, drinking alcohol, right, taking drugs, even reading certain books, for lots of people, man, going to church is like that. It's like it becomes an addiction because it changes like your whole emotional energetic frequency, right? And you're in a different space. So whatever that type of how that thing works for you, to me, it's not about looking at it in a good or bad way. Now, I'm not speaking about, serious addictions or problems. That's something different that I'm not working with that specifically. But what I'm saying is that we all, on some level, we want to feel better, right? We want to feel that there's more meaning, that there's more purpose. We want to be relieved of some of the uncomfortability and sometimes the really serious pain and suffering and sadness that we're going through or that we feel in others. That's natural. It's also natural to want to find something more magical. And in some of these mental, emotional escapes, right, beautiful things come out of it. I mean, I feel like Lord of the Rings, for example, and I have not looked up Tolkien's chart actually, but Lord of the Rings, I feel like, is in many ways so filled with Piscean magic, right? I mean, all the things that you can imagine. So let's talk a little bit about the polarity point, because polarity point, meaning the opposite sign, is the two signs, first of all, and I talk about this probably in every one of my videos, so excuse me if you've heard it now 12 times, but so polarities, opposite signs, opposite houses, however we want to look at that, they're not separate things. They make one field of energy. So in this case, we're talking about Virgo. So if we are looking at Pisces on one hand and Virgo on the other hand, they're two ends of one spectrum of energy. The idea working with polarity is about integration, right? Because together, a synthesis, a blending and integration and alchemy of the two is how we make best use of that field, right? But if I'm a Virgo, forget which side I said it was on, whatever, if I'm a Virgo, then I may need to tap into more Pisces medicine to balance myself and vice versa. So let's think about the type of medicine that Virgo can bring to Pisces. So where Pisces is that otherworldly, ethereal, least connected with the physical, I guess, restraints or parameters of our universe, Virgo is the most dialed into the physical experience. And in particular, it is about all the physical things, all the jobs, all the things that we have to do, our responsibilities, right? It's not often la la land. It's not, it's the opposite of escaping. It's actually, the step by step, I got to brush my teeth and now I'm going to work. And these are the steps I go through at my job if I have a job, right? And so if we get too far out in Pisces, which sometimes can be stuck in possibilities, one of the things I say, I have lots of Pisces around me in my most intimate life. And to me, they have almost always this astounding talent, right? And great ideas, but they're not always great at making them happen, right? They're not always great at actually applying and actually putting in the work and taking the steps to do it. It's like it just lives up there in this space, or they're always doodling in a little art book, and you say, oh my God, those illustrations, that's, you should like have an art show or whatever, and it just stays in the book, right? Or it just stays as ideas, it stays as potential, right? This is one of the things of Pisces that can happen, is we just stay in the possibility, right? Virgo's about, okay, what tools, what methods, what do I need to work it out and do something with it? Now, I want to acknowledge, because in my experience, I've found that sometimes what happens with the Pisces stuck in possibility is that it sometimes feels like it's impossible to take that big idea or that big vision, those things, that actually can't be translated. And what I mean by that is, we can translate bits and pieces, but we can never, for example, take the essence of what we might call spirit or God or all of nature and suddenly turn it into one little photograph, right? Or one little drawing or one little sculpture, right? You can't capture things that way. And even when we take a photograph of each other, right, that doesn't capture the essence entirely of what we are. So sometimes Pisces, I think that energy just doesn't want to do it if you can't capture the full thing, if you can't capture the full truth of it. And Pisces, by the way, is about universal truth, right? It is about things that are true for all of us and about seeing the wholeness and the expansiveness. So you can see, and I can feel the frustration in, oh my gosh, that thing seemed amazing. And now, I tried to turn it into a story, or I tried to do, some sort of photo project, or I tried to do a painting, or I try whatever your medium is, I try to turn it into a dance, into a movie, whatever, and the movie doesn't capture it. So you can see how it's frustrating. But if we don't translate a little bit of that, I guess, magic or feeling or spirit, then lots of people don't get to experience it. And in my experience, it's the Virgo part of the energy that can be, okay, we may have to pick a little piece and we may have to work, to perfect it. And it may never be the entire thing, but somebody holds the one little, I don't know, stone carving, and maybe they tap into that energy, right? Maybe that one painting, that one photograph is a doorway for somebody to experience something bigger. Watching that dance or watching that movie, hit your heart in just the perfect way that all of a sudden you have a whole new dimension of feeling available to you, or you see life in a whole different way, or you all of a sudden accept things in a different way, right? That's, to me, worth it. And it's okay to acknowledge that we won't get it all, right? Those things that we're talking about in the Pisces realm, we actually can't capture them. We can't capture them with the tools and the words and the things that we normally like to, but we can get little, I don't know, fractals of them, right? Or we can get, little pieces, we can get parts. And I do believe that all of us, when we tune into those little parts in the right way, that we know how to pick up on the rest of the frequency. So it's almost like it's just the right note to let you hear the whole symphony, right? And that, when I'm saying about symphony, I mean something that happens inside of you that's connected with something greater. So to me, these are some of the magical things about Pisces. Acceptance is something else. So let's talk again about this little back and forth between Virgo and Pisces. So, I was talking before about Pisces can just be seeing the best in things. Also, Pisces is about acceptance. One of the most beautiful, beautiful qualities of Pisces is to accept things as they are, right? To not have to change things, to not pick them apart, to just realize that it's okay, right? To just let it go. And sometimes those of us, especially like myself, need a lot of that medicine, right? That surrender, that giving up, the idea that somehow we're going to control the external environment, or we're going to somehow fix everything into the way we want it to be, or that it should be, or that there even is a should be, or a perfect way, or whatever. Pisces is the allowance and the acceptance, the unconditional love. And so, which is beautiful, but sometimes there are things that we can make better. right? For example, if I'm too far out in Pisces land, I might be sick and just, trust that somehow everything will be fine, when what I really need is to take some medicine. And I'm not saying that that's always the case. I'm talking about trying to figure out the balance, right? Pisces, I don't need to worry about anything, right? Well, you might need to, right? There may be things that, like, for example, it might be good to floss and brush your teeth so they don't fall out eventually. The idea of so detaching from what from the physical things we need to do, in most circumstances doesn't work very well without some balance. So Virgo is the part that is more practical, right? Okay, so here's the things I do need to get better. Here's how I can self-improve. Here's where I can be more efficient. Here's where I actually do need to do something and not just stay out there and, oh, maybe one day I'll think about it, right? And so, my teacher, Laura Nalbandian, actually think it was her husband who would say, hope is not a plan. So Pisces can be out there in this sort of hopeful existence that, someone's going to come save me, right? Or waiting for someone to save you, or feeling like a victim, which again is waiting for someone to come and save me. And so that is different than the positive kind of hope or faith that, that we are connected, that we ultimately are okay, that we are loved, those things. I mean, it's not particularly healthy to just hope, for example, that you'll be able to pay your bills this month without taking any steps to see that you can. Or for example, like with me, if I just hope that the universe would align so that circumstances would be different and I could be with my dad, I'd never get on a plane and go and be there, right? There's something to be said about the balance between when I got to step in and step up and do the stuff I need to do. Now, too much Virgo, and I'm, like I said before, I'm totally bound up and trying to make everything right and do it right and make it better. And I'm finding problems in everything. And I'm ripping apart, and many times, the things that are just beautiful as they are. But again, the balance, right? It's the integration between the two. So in many ways, I think about Virgo and Pisces as the integration between heaven and earth, not because I believe there's a specific heaven. Or you can say, I just mean between the spiritual and the physical, or you can say between the ethereal and the tangible, whatever words you like there. But spirit and body maybe is my favorite, because I think about between the two of them, that's us. We are spirit and body. Spirit in a body, or body into spirit, depending whichever way you like to look at that. I had someone one time suggest to me that I play back and forth between which of these things feels more true to me. I am in my body, or my body is in me. And if you play around with that one, you'll see that one has a more Virgo approach and one has a more Pisces approach, but they both, it's just whichever way you want to look at it. But we're doing both at the same time. Let's see. So I want to mention, I certainly said that the co-rulers of Pisces are Jupiter and Neptune, and that is true. And I work with both traditional and modern rulers when they apply. But I want to talk about Neptune, the modern ruler, a little bit. And in particular, because some of you already know, but if not, I will mention again, one of my favorite ways to learn and work with astrology is by living planets first. And what that means is, well, for me, I do it every year on my birthday and choose a planet to live for that whole year, but you could do it for a week or a day or whatever, if you're interested in it. If you are curious, there's information on my website and you can always contact me. But personally, for the past 6 years on my birthday in July, I choose a new planet to live first. And my intention is to let that planet, because to me, all the planets represent different parts inside of me, parts of my psyche. So I chose Neptune this year to let that part be the filter through which I see life to the best of my ability. So I can start to experience more what Neptune is like, what that energy is like personally, what it's like in me, what life looks like when I take that view first. And you know, what's interesting when you choose a planet first, it's you also learn in what ways that you kind of fight against that energy, or ways that you don't want to see through that energy. It's all part of the same process. For me, truly, it has been every year I've done this, I've had such pointed experiences, all the way from sort of deep emotional shifts or soul shifts, I guess you might call them. But that harkens to my work at Sage Goddess, where we have a soul shift program. But yeah, all the way from that level to just literally seeing signs or things when I'm driving or in my neighborhood that are linked with that particular planet. It's like when I choose it and I put my intention into it, it's like it shows up everywhere. So Neptune, which is associated with the ocean, right? The interconnectivity of the ocean and the water and all that. So it wasn't that long ago, I was going for a walk jog in my neighborhood, and someone had set out this giant photograph of the ocean just sitting on the sidewalk here in well, you know, we're pretty much in downtown LA. And so it's stuff like that where I stop and I think, oh, it's so just so, for me, those little I guess revealing moments. So anyway, they mean a lot to me. They may not to you, but if you're interested, you know, give it a go. I have some tools that I work with it. And at some point I plan to do more with it. I've entertained the idea of doing some kind of class or a workshop where we all kind of sign on for a year together, and maybe every month we live a planet, and then we, you know, get together and talk about our experiences and really dig into it, but haven't got there yet. So Neptune, anyway, my point is I've been living Neptune since July, right? And Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, which is my connection here. Neptune is about oneness, right? With Neptune, there is nothing separate. There is no thing, right? Neptune is the reality that it is all part of one energy. And so when we're working with this energy or feeling into this energy or experiencing this energy, that sort of lens or that sort of Neptunian Piscean filter, again, is this to seeing things as one. So, you know, when I'm seeing my neighbor doing something, it's not some guy doing something different. It's a part of everything, which means it's part of me. I've mentioned this before, but you know, everything is part of our birth charts, right? When you look at your birth chart, everything you experience in your life is part of your birth chart. It's not separate. Some of these things are all just views about how we look at it. But so when you're working with Pisces, or when you have a lot of Pisces, or Pisces is your north node, or the 12th house is your Pluto polarity point, or you have strong Jupiter Neptune aspects, it's partly a path of dharma and a soul intention to experience that oneness, right? To remove those lines of separation and differences, and to look at how it's one thing expressing in different ways. And working together is the big thing too, right? Because even when we think we're fighting it, think about it as one big animal, right? You may not like what the little toe is doing, but it's part of everything. And so to just simply fight the little toe, you know, might not be the best solution. Now, I'm not saying there's not times we don't need to stand up for things and fight, but I just mean that shift in how we look at things changes how we approach life, right? And I talked about this allowance and acceptance. That's big Neptune stuff too. It's also with Neptune, I think it's like, I didn't talk about this yet. The big word, how could I leave this word out? Compassion. Pisces and Neptune, it's about compassion, seeing life and having your moment with compassion first. So now I'll give a personal example, because, well, one, I like making astrology personal anyway, because that's, I think, how one way it really helps us. If we're too abstract, It's like it's just some thing we're talking about, and it's actually happening in us, right? It's all the fancy words and things are just ways that we come to understand it, but we are living astrology. We are the energy. But to this compassion point, so, my mom is the power of attorney, and she has to make a lot of decisions about my dad right now. And my mom historically has deferred to my dad. He has been the one that has been in charge of pretty much everything. So this is a complete role reversal for her. And there are times when I don't like the way she does it. I wouldn't do it that way. And it's easy for me to respond right away in an irritable, kind of judgmental way. For those of you who know me a little bit, I have Mercury conjunct Saturn, right? I to loosen up my mind and to be flexible, and sometimes it's a challenge, but I mean well. So when I'm living Neptune first, which means I'm also tapping into my Pisces energy, when my mom comes forward with something, the Neptune first way, the Pisces first way, is to first come with love and compassion, to listen, to accept, to hold space, and then to really feel into whether it's useful to offer something that might make it better. You can hear also how I'm saying that it's easier for me to come from the Virgo side sometimes. And I have Pluto in the 6th house. Sometimes it's just okay as it is. And we just need to listen. We just need to love. We just need to be there. And Pisces, it truly, like, the level of compassion that Pisces has is profound. And the care, the natural healing energy, the ability to really, we say, help ease the suffering of souls. But that doesn't come from fixing people. People aren't broken, right? That comes from coming and feeling and being in the space and really feeling into what is needed. So, for me, so much of that Neptune first is stop, have compassion, feel, expand the space, expand the space. And there's another piece too, that there's the faith part, is important, meaning that the having belief in something greater, right? That's a big part of Pisces, right? Pisces is about feeling the connection, or having faith, or feeling a part of something greater than yourself. And again, that can be defined in many, many different ways. But I think, one of the things that can happen with Pisces on the more downside is there can be feelings of hopelessness, of meaninglessness, of being alone, of being lost. When we're working in a big field like Pisces or Neptune, sometimes we can't find our footing, right? And that's because in those spaces we don't need footing, but we're used to trying to have it. And so if you're moving into Pisces energy as part of your evolutionary path of growth, part of it is just adjusting to a bigger space, a space that has less definition, a space that doesn't have edges. It's almost like getting comfortable not touching something. And at the same time, on the inside, right, like from a heart spirit level, everything is touching, but there's not the same grounding that we're used to feeling. So I'm sure that I left out, as always, lots of things. I hope it's nothing that is too precious to Pisces. If so, add it for yourself. In back to the old Pisces term, there's always more. There's always more. I guess this is a great thing to end on with Neptune and with Pisces and with Jupiter. There's always more than what you're seeing. There's always more than what you're feeling. There's always more than what you think is happening. That's the key, to be open to the more. So it can show you what's really there. So it can show you more of what's true, what's more of all inclusive, right? It's not about the separate pieces. It's about how all the things are working together. So if we all allow room for there to be more space, right? More love, more room, more potential. I think we'd find that we are then harnessing that polarity point Virgo in a new way, in a way that really, really serves, and that builds and that grows and that makes our life, our physical life on this planet, closer to what I would say that spiritual essence is that we really are. Okay. Wow. Thank you guys. It's always a pleasure sharing with you. And as always, I love feedback or ideas, things you'd like to hear or learn about. I think what I'm going to do next is I'll do a video for each house. I feel like it would just be nice to have one little repository of each sign, each planet, each house that you could access easily on my website or on my YouTube channel, whatever's easier for you. So that'll be my plan. I'll move into that next. But I want to mention here, if you do have feedback, please reach me through my email. I do better with that. So occasionally, I look at other comments, but I'm just not great with it. So Tara@taraall.com. Also through my website, you can message me directly to my email, and I would love to hear from you. And yeah, all the best and many blessings. And again, thank you for being part of my journey and part of my circle and part of my bigger space. Take care.